And if 8 out of 10 cats all prefer Whiskers, do the other 2 prefer Leslie Judd? Yeah, I think they were peaking about then. Peaking, man. So, rattling a few chains, shaking a few cages. That's pretty good. I like that. I like that sort of thing. So, I'm going to talk a little bit more about 9/11 because, you know, you have to keep, you've got to keep on, you've got to keep on at this, try and enlighten people, try and wake them up. So, I think there were 2,000 people or thereabouts that died on that day. And, you know, there hasn't been a murder investigation. They were quite obviously, just murdered in cold blood. All those people. So, I think that's the height of disrespect myself. I think if anybody dies, you should try and find out. Sorry, if anybody's murdered, you should try and find out who's killed them, because that's just not respectful. And that instead of an investigation, the blame was immediate, and the deaths were avenged by murdering thousands, tens of thousands of innocent people in the Middle East. Now, I find that grossly offensive. So, to put it into perspective, I don't think you can. So, we are supposed to believe that a guy suffering from kidney failure that once was a CIA operative for the Mujahideen, when the Soviets invaded Afghanistan, we're to believe that he just spit the dummy out and thought, just get a load of lads and do that. And we know that that he did it, don't we? Because that day when it all happened, I was working, stopped work, watched the telly, went to the house where I was working, watched the telly, watched the coverage. And in that coverage, I saw a plant saying, again and again, well, the plane hit the tower and the fuel and it melted the steel and it all crashed down. And they kept playing that again and again. And then it was worked out that day that he was already suspected. But it was kind of confirmed that day, it must have been him, Osama bin Laden. And he wasn't ever hunted down to Pakistan and murdered in his own house without a trial. That didn't actually happen. And the 12, I think, Navy SEALs that choppered it in that day, guess what? They're dead. So, they're not going to say anything, are they? So, Building 7. Oh not Building 7 again, not that again. Can't you shut up about Building 7? No, can't shut up about it, because buildings, steel frame buildings, do not free fall. For that to happen, all points, all the points of support in a steel frame building have to be compromised at the same time. You get a slight delay with the detonation techniques, and that's just, longer wires, a bit less something mechanical rather than physical. Well, that's physical, but nothing to do with the building. It's just the way the charges are set. But for a steel structured building to free fall, all support has to be taken away, gone at the same time. And did a plane hit it? No. It was on fire. And only a little fire, the fucking hell. When the stupid woman from the BBC, who, will never live it down, announced that it had collapsed, it was behind her. She was live, she was there live. And I've just heard that Building 7 has collapsed. It's behind you. And there was smoke coming out of it, and it looked like somebody had, I don't know, lit a bonfire on the roof. And I'm not saying that that's happened. I'm saying it, it was definitely on fire, but it wasn't a massive blaze. It wasn't like the Towering Inferno with Steve McQueen. It was a fire that you could only see the smoke of, really, and not much of it either. And the main focus, of course, was on the Twin Towers, the big ones, the World Trade Center. But when Building 7 did collapse, it free-falled for over 4 seconds and ended up in its own footprint. Fred Dibner would have been very happy with that result, as he would with, even more so, I think, with the World Trade Center towers, because although the Hudson River, which is a big enough river, if it had been, the whole of that site is under below the level of the, a lot of it anyway, is below the level of the water of the river, of the water level, and there is a structure holding that out, containing that water as it goes past, like a levee, but made of concrete and steel. And if all those thousands of tons of steel had fallen onto that, it would have flooded half of Manhattan, or a great deal of it, But of course that didn't happen, because it was very carefully demolished. And the other thing is, where the hell is all the steel? Where is it all? The columns that made up the World Trade Center, there were columns of steel. There were box section, like a box, looking down a box, but the box walls are made of steel, and the steel walls are 2 inches thick. So that's 2 inches all the way around. I think there were 16-inch squares. I'm not sure about that, but I know they were placed one next to the other, and then a window, and then the same configuration, mostly all the way around. And it was criticized when it was first opened because of the lack of light. and you had to get inside the window hole, the space, like into the reveals of the window, to actually have a panorama of anywhere, but of course New York. So it was built, belt and braces. And just one more small thing, just for the Freemasons among you. It was 33 years to the hour when the first cartoon plane hit, as from the first ceremonial turf lifting when they was set to build the towers, and the first plane hitting. 33 years. No, it's just a coincidence. So yeah, so all the steel turned to dust when it was coming down, and you can clearly see this. I recommend that you watch Judy Wood's Where Did the Towers Go? And she described it as dustification. And I'd like to see, I'd like to see other examples of this. Like there's no precedent for this. The only time it ever happened was on that day when a burning steel-structured skyscraper fell. Planes have hit skyscrapers before. Fires have burned for days, and it still didn't come down. If kerosene, which is more or less what jet fuel is, kerosene and office furniture melted steel, they wouldn't use massive coke ovens, would they, to do it? It would be far cheaper just to use kerosene. I just despair sometimes, and just think if that really had sort of what it does, it could do is warp it, distort it with an instant, and if there's a great deal of instability. But that didn't happen, did it? You'd expect an airplane hitting it from one side, it would do that because all the heat would be in one area there, and it would like that, and then it would topple and collapse, maybe, but probably not, just hang there. Just, think about the 2-inch columns. Just think about the central core of columns. Yeah, there were columns all the way around the windows and the columns, and then there was a central core of columns where I think there were 16 or 19 columns of the same dimensions, 2 inches thick, 16 inches square, or thereabouts. And yet we saw on the idiot box the really bad cartoon of a plane crashing in to the Twin Towers, or one of them, and emerging on the other side. An aluminium nose cone emerges on the other side. It's the perfect shape of the front of the plane, and it comes in, and and then there's another classic shot of the helicopter filming the second plane coming in, and it does a long shot, a massive long shot away, and then it zooms in, and then it does a long shot again, and you don't see the plane, and then boom, it hits. So it wasn't in that long shot. They didn't put it in there. They forgot. It was probably all rushed and lots of things went wrong. Look into it. Don't disrespect dead people.